Hello, my name is Andrea and welcome to my TEFL 2 portfolio screencast. My coach's name is Bianca Vis and here we can see my table of contents and my checklist. I have ticked all of the boxes, everything is present, which brings me to my group activity. We designed our group activity for an intermediate class and we used the last steps of the scaffolding ladder, since we used the same vocabulary as the previous group in order to make a repetition exercise. And we try to do so. Over here we can see the words that we use. This is the handout from the previous group. Our lesson aim was that the students know how to use earlier learned words in a new situation or in a context. And we try doing so by first having the students pronounce all of the words again and later on explain us, the teachers, the meaning of these words. Then we made a gap exercise which the students had to fill in. The only thing we really didn't think about was the level of grammar that is used in this exercise. This was way too high for the level the students had reached. And after this, we had the students make new words, so design new context in which they could use these words. So the only thing I really had to have to pay close attention to is the level of grammar in vocabulary exercises, which brings me to my best own activity, which I designed for advanced students receptively. I used a reading text to do so, because Virginia Allen mentions in chapters 8 till 10 that in order for students to learn new vocab, they should feel a need to learn. And for advanced students, this need to learn basically comes from reading texts, which is why my lesson aim is that the students gain receptive knowledge of new vocab and they can guess unfamiliar words from the context of a text. So I made a reading text, which I wrote it myself. I checked it for spelling mistakes, and I even handed it in for an LSD assignment. I highlighted some of the words in the text and made some questions about it for the students to fill in later on. So the idea behind this question was that the students had to guess the meaning of this vocabulary through the meaningful contexts of the text. I had a sponge assignment as well, which basically asked the students to summarize the plot of the story, which is more of a productive way to teach vocabulary. But since it's a bonus question, I thought it was a nice assignment. Over here we can see the answer sheet for the other teacher if he wanted to present my lesson. Over here we can see my vision on teaching language 2 vocabulary, and that my vision is that language or vocabulary is so important that it cannot be taught as a separate skill. This is why I chose to embed vocabulary in all of my exercises and have the students actually keep a sort of language log, so that they're responsible for their own learning, since there's no way of saying what words a student already knows, since there's so much English around us already. Which brings us to my teacher's manual task. I analyzed the course book Stepping Stones and their teacher's manual, and what I've noticed was that the teacher's manual actually does mention the scaffolding steps as shown over here. The true problem is that when you come to analyze the textbook or the workbook, is that the idea of scaffolding really doesn't mirror in the actual workbook, because they do mention an exercise where the students had to fill in a compass with these directions in it, and suddenly later on they had to make full sentences about the weather, which really doesn't quite grasp the concept of scaffolding to me. So my insights, my actual conclusion after analyzing this book is that as a teacher, you really should make complementary activities if you decide to teach from a book like this. The course book assignment, I analyzed another course book. It's called Taalblokken. It's an MBO book from Malmberg. I have noticed that the scaffolding steps are used in here, but the book only focuses around on reading texts and listening skills. So the speaking skills and writing skills, they weren't practiced at all. That's why I have chosen to design my own activities which focus around the same vocabulary, but on the reading and writing skills, which we can see over here. I thought about a couple of assignments which they could do. So I already mentioned that the students should keep their own language log, that they could make tests for each other. They could play Hangman. It's a great game in order to learn more about vocabulary. And over here we can see the planning that I've made. I've divided the vocabulary in 3 groups of 12, which I assign right over here, as you can see, in blocks of 3. And this was the end of my screencast. I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you.